Hey y'all, almost ready to go. Give me a few more moments. Welcome everyone from Max Stream. We're talking about lore today, so sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one. My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to the AstroHistorian. This is a channel dedicated to exploring and explaining the lore of sci-fi and space universes and discussing their impact. Today, we're doing another AstroHistorian live. Welcome, one and all. My name is Paul, Berserker01, Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender at the Astropub, your professor on the AstroHistorian, and your moderator at the Captain's Table podcast. Welcome. We're going to be talking about the shadow corporations of the UEE. We're going to give it a few moments to kind of get started, but we have the big one. There we go. Which is Shubin Interstellar. Let's talk about here in a moment. Oh, shut up, Happy. Hey, right now, welcome everybody. Welcome everyone from Max Stream as well. Thank you for that raid. Welcome everybody. Apologize for being set up here. And Dr. Kingpin, welcome. First time chatter. Pre-recorded? No. Luckily not pre-recorded. It's an Astro Chad kind of day. Thank you. Shadow corporations, they ask, what do you want? Kind of, yes. So, I do want to preface this, that it's like not even a secret. It's not even a secret that that the corporations of the UEE run the UEE. Now, are they one-to-one controlling the UEE? No, because the UEE it's got a weird structure. It's sort of like America, but not like America. It's kind of like the EU if the EU central government had a lot more power. Because each of the individual planets inside the UEE has their own somewhat sovereignty. The UEE has some basic rules and guidelines that you have to abide by, but you can set up whatever laws you want to as long as it doesn't violate those laws. They're called it's like the UEE human rights, the Statement of Human Rights or something like that, which basically just is a list of things that you cannot do. They're kind of like the Bill of Rights for the United States, but they're effectively like protections against government overreach and guaranteed rights to individuals and so on and so forth, which everyone is covered, citizen, civilian alike. But generally the UE doesn't care about what Castra does. Castra is its own business. It can do what it wants. It has its own senator. The senator can advocate for Castra's interests, but the Castra government, which is known as the Planetary Council, or it's the Council of Governors, is the one that actually deals with all of the laws that deals with Castra. So as a result, while the corporations do have a huge amount of pull with the kind of federal UEE government, they have varying degrees of pull within the local governments of the UEE. Thank you, Wom. Notifications off. Yes, the notifications are currently off for this one. But thank you for giving... Oh, Jesus! Advius Bloodraven, thank you so much for giving 10 subs on YouTube, on Twitch. Oh man, I'm not going to be able to catch this live. Will you be posting this load on YouTube? This is already on YouTube. I'm doing this live on YouTube as well. For those of you who watch, I actually leave up the VODs afterwards. These are live streamed, so don't expect the same sort of put togetherness is not the right word. The same sort of flow as a video. I'm going to pause a little bit. I'm going to reference chat, that sort of thing. But yeah. Is there a Bill Burr of Star Citizen? I don't know. Like the cinematic detail, yeah. It's not going to be as well constructed. The foreign fighters, Shadow Corp. Oh, you mean the Frontier fighters? Cohesiveness, maybe? Yeah, polish. I think that's the best way to put it, polish. So the UEE is okay with Lorville being a massive human rights violation. Yes. Indentured servitude, air that barely qualifies as breathable, etc. Yeah. The thing that Lorville and Hurston as a whole is sort of different is that Hurston, Area 18, or not Area 18, ArcCorp, Crusader, and Microtech are technically not represented planets in the UEE. They are a weird middle ground. They are controlled and operated by the corporations. The corporations have all of the power that a planetary governor would have, or a planetary governor, the governor council would have. And there's even sort of a pseudo Stanton government, which involves the presidents and CEOs of all of the different corporations meeting at least once a year to discuss matters that deal with the entirety of the system. And often UEE has presence there. Like I imagine Special Agent in Charge Dooley would be there frequently to brief on safety concerns and such. And then it's not uncontested. Lorville is, and Hurston in general, is very much a point of contention in the UEE, but the thing is that, and this is where you sort of get into the corporations controlling the federal UEE government a little bit, is that they make the weapons that the UEE military needs. Like the every Nova tank, Tumbril Nova, is armed with a Hurston Dynamics weapon. The laser, I think it's called the Exodus laser, on the front of every Idris P, not every Idris P, but all the Idris K kits, the aftermarket kit, that's a Hurston Dynamics weapon. So like most of the antimatter weaponry that's made, the UEE uses, which isn't really uses, they more use it as sort of a weapon of mass destruction in case they need to. They very rarely pull out the antimatter weapons. Those are, like, most of them are created by Hurston. They may have been invented by a Hurston. So the UEE's kind of got this situation where if they crack down on the Hurstons for violating several of human rights violations, they could lose their military weaponry, which they need to keep the Vanduul from flaying people alive. So it's sort of a delicate balance. Now, the Hurstons also know that they can't go a little bit too crazy. If they go too crazy, they can get a, ambitious senator from, say, Terra to start ripping them a new one, so that they'll get bad reputation and might hurt their sales outside of government sales. But yeah. Yeah. And that's really the thing that's kind of the cornerstone of most of the shadow corporations, what I call the shadow corporations that control the UEE, are they all have some element which is sort of holding hostage the government. Hey, Captain. We're not going to talk about Armin Strong yet. Omega. Well, Citizens for Prosperity is a good point, because as I've said in my video on the Stanton-Hurston war, the Stanton-Hurston War, the Stanton Pyro War, which is the first real narrative arc inside the game. It's fairly clear that the Citizens for Prosperity are at least somewhat controlled by the Hurstons. And if they're not directly controlled by just the Hurstons, they have a lot of ties with the corporations of the UEE. And that's it's the stated goal of the CFP to make Pyro stable, so that it would become safe for corporations to open locations inside Pyro and exploit Pyro for its resources. So, it is very funny, but the CFP may be directly responsible for the ASD facilities inside Pyro. All of that experimentation they're doing, the weird stuff they're doing, yeah, that's probably CFP's the negative externality of the CFP's work. By the way, Paul, I have something I'd like your input on. It's something I've been working on. How to get info for you to look at it. Send me through Discord. I have a link down in the description of my Discord. I know somebody, was it you who said they want to send me something like a document? I didn't say that. Yeah. No, so that's sort of the point of how Star Citizen, the writers have written the lore and how they've discussed the lore up to this point, is that they don't want anything to be overtly good or bad. They kind of want a sort of a shades of gray in there, with some people more on the good side with some bad qualities, but mostly good, and some people who are mostly bad with some good qualities. So, for instance, the Crusader, mostly good. They give most of their money away to charities. They also are incompetent. They don't know how to run a government. And so instead of dealing with the problems that you would normally deal with, because they're a corporation, not a government, they're dealing with making sure they can have profits, they, instead of dealing with it normally, they decide to just, build weapons of mass destruction. Whereas Hurston, mostly bad. But there are some weird kind of benefits to Hurstons. The Hurstons only hire the people whom society at large has basically abandoned. For many people who go to work for Hurstons in their lifetime contracts, this is a better deal than what they would have ever gotten in their own life. They get free healthcare, they get room and board, they get guaranteed meals, basically they become almost family-like in their treatment by the Hurstons. The Hurstons do care about their workers. They just don't care about the quality of life of their workers. The same way that, a mechanic cares about their engine, they just may not care about the garage that engine is sitting in if they're disassembling the engine and reassembling it to clean it out. So you're saying there'll be pros and cons to each faction mostly? Yeah, effectively. So what are the pros and cons of Microtech? As a corporation or as the planet? Well, as a corporation, they're fairly middle of the road, but they're only tech based. So they don't really have an interest in anything else other than that. They also have basically a stranglehold on most modern technologies. They are the Apple of the UEE. So think of anything you can think of about why you would be mad at Apple. Probably Microtech is doing that too, or Microsoft. Again, probably also doing that too. Like, one of the big things is it's quite clear that Microtech is probably messing with AI when they shouldn't be, illegally. They also are partners and kind of house Rayari, which is complicated in terms of their existence. Yeah, it's Apple, Meta, Alphabet, that kind of thing, yeah. And Area 18 is one that not a lot of people know, but Area 18 is a company town. All of ArcCorp is a company town. And I say that in the same way that, like, if you know coal mining towns in West Virginia, for instance, you'll know what I'm talking about, where the town exists for one purpose. The corporation owns the town, and they mostly pay the people who work for them in company money. And that money can only be used at the general store. So you have to go to the company-owned general store to get items that you have to pay for with company money. So you're effectively slaves. You can never get enough money to escape the system. Even the data pads you find on the ground is Microtech. Most advanced scanning equipment that's in the UEE and communications equipment is made by Microtech. And that's kind of another kind of example of how shadow corporations work in the UEE, is that there are a lot of companies that have monopolies over specific markets, and the UEE does not care to break them up. Right now, the reason why there's a lot of recruitment in Area 18 is because that's where Invictus is. But ArcCorp in general is probably the largest populated planet in the Stanton system. You got to remember that a lot of what we see on that ecumenopolis of Area 8 of ArcCorp is actually factories. They're factories or warehouses or office buildings. Not a lot of that is homes or apartments or places where people can live. And there's a lot of automation in ArcCorp. In fact, ArcCorp itself is openly developing AI. And they have the waivers from the UEE federal government to do so, even though it's illegal in the UEE. But it was actually an article written about how it's dangerous that that Area 18 area, he keeps saying that, ArcCorp is actually working on this whole thing. Does Stanton and Terra share a gate, but generally more corporation than the UEE cause tensions with Terra? Not really. A lot of those companies are quite fond of Terra. Terra is the corporate headquarters. When you're dealing with the culture of the UEE, Terra is the business center, the Dubai, if you will, or to a degree New York. But it's sort of this. It prides itself on being super within. The nature is very blended with the cities of Terra. Terra was always seen by its settlers as the second chance. That humanity kind of screwed up Earth. Terra is our second chance at creating a kind of paradise. And mostly they do a pretty good job. I mean, it's also huge. But it's also become the cultural and business capital. So if you have a corporation, having some kind of business in Terra is important because it is a huge hub for a lot of different jump points, including Stanton, but also jump points that lead to Banu and Geon Space. And also several important locations in the UEE. Old Hong Kong. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Old Hong Kong. I mean, literally, it's Constantinople, Byzantium, Istanbul. You know, it's that city. It's supposed to be that sort of crossroads of trade and merchant interests. So the people, the companies of Stanton probably have closer ties to Terra than Sol, for instance. Developing AI on a planet that is literally covered in automated factories. What could possibly go wrong? That's my theory on what the depths are. The secret main boss of the depths is going to be a rogue AI that's sort of hiding in the systems in the depths. For those who don't know, the depths is a PvE dungeon similar to the contested zones. I won't call them conflict zones. That's Eve or Elite. It's similar to the contested zones, but the way that they're going to be developing them is somewhat procedurally generated. So they're not going to be that you won't go into the depths that experience the same level, but it's going to be instanced and individual. So you can like you or a group of people can go down there. So. Hey, Glue. So, probably the most open, other than say RSI, which has been around for longer than the UNE the UNE even existed, helped form the UNE and the UEE Navy. Probably the most open of these shadow corporations is Shubin Interstellar. Hey, Ryback, thank you for that Prime sub for 10 months. Have a freebie. Thank you for your Bezos bucks. I think CIG ought to make Earth a park with most of the planet turned into nature with population concentrated in a few cities, like the vision of the future of the planet. It would make CIG's job making it a lot easier. A lot of of the cities of Earth are actually abandoned, effectively. The way I just like to describe it is based off of the lore, most of the cities of Earth are kind of like old medieval towns where the old medieval town is mostly empty. So it's like old cities of, Europe or Central Asia or China, or like, Southeast Asia or India, like the old cities, which maybe have been mostly abandoned, maybe a couple people live there, sort of thing. But they're these giant old structures which have been around for hundreds of years, which are only being maintained enough so that they don't fall down, but nobody uses them. I get it, Jin, but I think that clashes kind of with the whole narrative of Earth being the old, decaying structures. It's the old world, whereas where Terra is sort of the new world, the new direction of humanity, where it's like nature is super intertwined with human existence and such. It'd be funny if you could find a planet in Star Citizen where the inhabitants were in the Iron Age. There are a couple of civilizations that are not spacefaring but don't have full civilizations. They're more like species. The most advanced non-spacefaring civilization we discovered was one that was in the Stone Age, like the Neolithic Age. So small villages, individual groups working together, intelligence, being able to talk with each other. One of them is called the Asoians from Oso. And if you've seen Asoian hides, congratulations. Those are, in fact, literally the skin of a sentient creature. A planet-wide museum, that's a good way of putting it. It's a monument to the past. And it's mostly empty. Earth is much smaller in population in the Star Citizen universe than it is now. My guess would be somewhere around 3 to 5 billion. So, and most of the people who work on Earth work for the government. So they're either work directly with the government or as contractors for the government or support for those contractors for the government. So it's all based around running the empire. But access is limited. You just have to, when you're in my server, if you're on the Discord, you have to go to the rules. And one of the options is to click the pub pipe emote to be able to get permissions. So. You can send me a DM via Discord. Yeah. I'll accept it. Is the seat of power moving to Terra then? That's the thing. That's the conflict. You've just hit on what is the story of Star Citizen. The game Star Citizen's main story is the conflict between Earth and Terra. Between Sol and Terra, really. Which is going to be the capital of the Empire. Because most people want to keep it on Earth right now, but there's a growing minority that want to move the capital to Terra. They're headed by a political group called the Transitionalists, who were a party made up of mostly rebels from the anti-Measure movement. And so, like, Crusader would be pro-Terra, for instance, because, like, why am I blanking on his name now? I always say his name funky and people get mad at me. August Dunlow. August Dunlow, the founder, was a anti-UEE rebel. He was an anti-Measure rebel. And so the Transitionalists want a much more radical change than just move the capital to Terra. They want to fundamentally destroy the citizenship system. They want to retool the entire government into what they call the Democratic Stellar Union, which is a much more democratic-based system with a lot more stops, a lot more checks and balances built in. They want to significantly reduce the size of the military, but increase the amount of size of government in terms of its maintaining of the infrastructure and such. The problem is, they want to reduce the size of the military in the middle of a war. They're not exactly 100% right. Bremen is an important part. I would say Castro is another important part. Bremen is super important because it's a bunch of wild cards. It's Space Texas. I like to call Terra Space Texas because it kind of is, but Terra is Space Texas in the same way that, like, Houston, it's more like the cities of Texas. For those of you in the United States, where, like, the cities of Texas are growing rapidly, and there's a lot of the population shift is happening to those cities because of tech, because of industries moving to Texas, because of lower taxes and such. And Bremen is more like rural Texas. It's more like the Midwest and rural Texas, because it's used to be the breadbasket, but it's still a major hub for like food. Silas Kerner is literally from Bremen, and he's quite literally you take Elon Musk and you mix him with what's his name? Oh, I know his name. I'll look it up. Matthew McConaughey. So it's like he's like Matthew McConaughey and Elon Musk put together. Is Terra not in the UEE? It is. No, the Terra is part of the UEE. It has been part of the UEE forever. It's just not okay with the current UEE government as it certainly currently stands. And of course, people live on Terra don't necessarily hate the UEE. There are some people who want to keep the UEE, maybe even want to keep Sol as the capital. Terra, the Earth is the capital of the UEE. But the majority of the people who live on Terra are they feel different. Like, they are smug as shit. Let me put it that way. They want to change over how we tell time. Like, they want to use Terra time as the main time which is a 28-hour cycle, I believe. And because Terra's year is slightly different, they also, the most smug of the people who are on Terra, only tell their age on Terra age, which is longer than the orbit is longer than Earth's orbit. So it's like 500 days, I think. So something like that. So like, there's an interview where one person was like, I like to prefer to say that I am older and or younger than I am because of I prefer Terra time, because I don't want to be the imperialist bastards who run this, who created this. So, and like the Midwest, it's likely going to see a population increase over the next few decades as the South becomes less habitable. Possibly. It is a pretty fruitful area. You haven't read Shakespeare until you've read the official Terra Library edition. Yeah. In Sol, have Mars and Venus been terraformed? Mars has, Venus hasn't. That's a big problem with the UE, with the terraforming technology of humanity, is that for some reason, we don't know why, Venusian type smog planets are impossible to terraform, or they're very difficult to terraform. They've never been able to do that. They've tried many times, but they've never been able to terraform a Venusian planet, which implies they've tried to terraform Venus and it didn't work. Yes, Omega, that was the joke. Thank you for explaining the joke. But yeah, no, Terra is like the center of culture, of the arts, of the sciences. Like Bering is located out of Terra. The famous Bering laser labs are located in Terra, which is where a lot of the breakthroughs in laser technology, energy weapon technology, energy technology in general comes from Terra. Origin is located in Terra. Anvil's headquarters is in Terra. Anvil's headquarters is in Nova Kiev in Terra, whereas Origin is in New Austin, Terra. That's Ice. I will say this: if your thinking starts with, well, 900 years in the future, I'm gonna stop you right there. This is important to understand. Star Citizen is not realistic. It is using the guise of realism to build a universe that people can feel like they're immersed in. But at its core, Star Citizen is about World War II dogfighting in space with bird aliens, giant talking sentient coral who also fly crab ships. At its core, it is not realistic. I like to use Gundam as a reference for it because if you look at everything but the robots, Gundam is very realistic. It has O'Neill cylinder colonies, it uses reasonable technologies. Heck, even like most of the ships, at least in Charge Counterattack, and I think a lot of the different series, use very expansive radiators to deal with heat buildup and such like that you'd have in space travel. But it also has giant robots and lightsabers and literally the Force. I think Klaus and Werner is. There's a couple companies which aren't located on Terra, and I think they may be one of them. We may actually not have their location. I'm looking up there. Nope, their headquarters on Sol. So their Klaus and Werner is on Earth. Their headquarters is Earth. Bering, however, is on Terra. Yeah. The funny thing about Klaus and Werner is that Klaus and Werner was founded by Hector Klaus, who was a former Bering employee, and he got so upset that Bering kept building these things. He's like, well, we can build these more efficiently with looser parts that they won't break as much, which is better for weapons, which means soldiers will survive better. And Bering finally sat him down and said, son, we have contracts with the military. And when weapons break, who are they going to come to for the replacement parts? We want them to break. We just don't want them to break them immediately. We just want them to break eventually so that they come to us to fix them. So we continue to have a job. They do their job up until the point where they don't, and then they can be replaced. And Klaus was like, but that's not efficient. It's inefficient. And in good German, as the good German he probably was with the name Klaus, and decided to build his own company with better weapons, and got a widow named Jessica Werner to help fund his ventures, which is what became K&W, or Klaus and Werner. Klaus and Werner is Heckler and Koch. It's that weapon company. It's just in space. Yes, Vega is infested with Vanduul. That's true. In 100 years, they would likely have AI dogfighting and not human pilots. Yeah. CIG does their best to try to still wrap the universe in a realism. Like, the reason why we don't have AI, there's an explanation for it. The reason why we dogfight in space instead of what we do is because of quantum drive. Because quantum drive and quantum jumps and such like that are so precise and so efficient that to have a smart weapon that can travel long distances to target a target, beyond the horizon, that they could just jump away at incredible speeds. And in order to build a weapon that could also jump after them, it would be so expensive that the weapon may not also work because of, weird space-time shit, because it's literally manipulating mass as it's going through. That the reason why dogfighting happens in space is because of this technology. The best way to deal with the problems is to deal with a threat is to get up close and catch them before they can jump away. Yes, Vega is where that big battle happened. Do you think the People's Alliance would be on board with rejoining the UEE if Terra made the capital? No. They don't like Terra. Vega is also not infested with the Vanduul, but it is constantly being attacked by the Vanduul. That's where the 142 battle is. Yeah, the Battle of Vega. $9.99, exactly. Did I see a gift sub coming out? Ryback, thank you for giving that sub, the gift sub as well, Ryback. Thank you. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. All right, so let's look at Shubin. Feel free to ask more questions and stuff like that. Oh wait, I didn't see this. So is there a body government that regulates alien tech? Because I don't understand if we have anti-grav and more advanced alien tech, why have so many ships not as advanced? Because anti-grav is also costly. So like, generally speaking, the reason why we have the tech we do have is because of two things. One, artificial intelligence is banned. So everything has to be done by hand. I mean, something like even modern chat GPT would probably be banned in the Star Citizen universe. Like, there are some expert systems that are allowed to exist, but they have to be very specifically focused. And humanity has built AGI. We built it in the past. The problem is that every time we build AGI, it doesn't go crazy and kill everybody. It just screws up massively and kills a bunch of people. So nobody trusts it. Basically, AI is sort of this I gotta do a video on this as well, by the way. That's coming out in June or July, so keep an eye on it. It's the AI history of AI. People it's very unpopular because of how much damage it's done in the past. So because everything has to be done by hand with very limited assistance with automation, it means things are slower. You want to get something from Earth to Terra, you have to pay for somebody to fly a ship with your stuff from Earth to Terra. And if a lot of the high-end stuff that's being produced needs to be shipped from other places to the location it's going to go, which can be expensive and time-consuming. So the volume of production is lower and the cost is higher. So generally, it's just more expensive to get things done. And while we do have anti-grav, like say the Drake Dragonfly is also small. So it doesn't have to hold up a huge mass. It's a smaller mass. And even something like the Nomad, which uses anti-grav, similar, kind of small. When you're dealing with very large craft, you're dealing with a lot of power requirement. And we just may not have the power ability to, or the efficiency of anti-grav technology to make those large ships function like that, like say the Xi'an do. And we are looking into trying to steal that alien technology, but the Xi'an are not interested in giving us that technology. So it's a matter of both acquiring the information that and also reverse engineering it. If you notice, the only ships we have from the Xi'an are typically that utilize that anti-grav technology a lot are typically smaller ships. And even the larger ships like the Raylan, which we're going to get, I doubt is going to be heavily invested in the entire ship being anti-grav. They're going to use regular thrusters. So I assume alien manufactured ships are probably under constant scrutiny and spying. Oh yeah, oh yes, 100%. There's an entire government there's an entire trade agreement between humanity and the Xi'an called the Huxaw, which has all sorts of regulations on what the Xi'an can do and can't do, and all those sorts of things, and what humanity can and can't do. Where's Drake headquarters located? On Berea in the city of not Newcastle. Newcastle's the capital of Berea. But it's the city of, it's a Ukrainian city. That's why I always, I know it, but it's not spelled the way that the Ukrainians spell it. It's not even spelled the way the Russians would spell it. Odessa. The Berea city of Odessa. It's spelled Odessa, but I think it's pronounced Odessa. Yeah, in the Magnus system. Is it true that that even the regen check was stolen from the Vandal? It is. That's the next video I'm going to be releasing this weekend on Regen Tech. It was legitimately stolen from the Vandal, and that is one of the reasons why we don't know how it. I believe it is ODYSSIA, but it may be ODESSIA. Let me look it up. ODYSSA. That's how it's spelled. Is it true that they stole? Is it stealing if we stole it first? I mean, yeah, like because that's true. We also don't know where the Vandal got the tech in the first place. Is there any known planets infested by bug-like species similar to Helldivers? Not that we know of, but I wouldn't doubt it. There are huge untapped planets. And there is a bug-like species that is similar to the Helldivers Terminids. They're called the whip crabs. They're a hive mind, a hive creature, where they have one queen who literally controls her children. And the children will go out and seek resources and bring it back to the queen. And the thing that's terrifying about the whip crabs is that when they're asleep, when they are dormant, they look like rocks. And knowing CIG, they're going to look like the mining rocks you could possibly mine. So you scan it. It will register something funky, and if you don't register it fast enough, they will wake up and just start attacking your ships. And they're the size of small buildings. They're the size of a family home. So you've got a crawling home, a creature the size of a home, crawling at you with giant claws. Not technically a crab, but carcinization. They used to be called the pyro crab, but we don't, Yeah, and whippy entrails. They have these little whippy faces. Water planets with scary sea monsters? They're water planets. I don't know if they have scary sea monsters. Famously, the one that I know of off the top of my head is Nemo. And Nemo famously has no sea monsters, which is freaky because it's habitable. It's a habitable world, and it has oil on it. And I mean oil, black gold, Texas tea, like that oil. But there's no sign of life. And if anybody knows how oil is created, that's scary as shit. Question, is there any lore about different types of Krakens, like a refinery manufacturing type? Nothing. In fact, the only lore we have about the privateer is that it's actually made by Cousin Crow. So all of the Krakens are actually technically being made by Cousin Crow, of Cousin Crows at Orison. Yes. And in fact, it's a water world. So most of it is made out of oceans. And it's dotted, Nemo's dotted with giant oil rigs. which are extracting the oil. Oh no, did Iris do a big one? Yes, she did. 29 months. Sorry about that. Thank you for that 29 months, Iris. I don't have notifications on for the lore stuff. School's out, so AstroHistorian is pulling day shifts. Yep. Well, partially. If you all are interested, and if you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments. I am okay with doing more sort of like midday my time videos or like streams for the AstroHistorian. I'm thinking about doing that maybe on Wednesdays, because up to this point I've been doing, you know, alternating Monday evenings between different stuff, and I'll probably still alternate and do that. So maybe sometimes it'll be twice a week, but I'm okay with doing kind of a midday Wednesday 2-hour stream or something. If citizenship is not guaranteed, does that mean that the rich kids can't count nepotism and daddy buying their citizenship? Yes and no. The way you get citizenship is through the Citizenship Council. So you have to go before a citizenship board, and they will like decide if you have the right stuff to become a citizen. Now, if your parents are pretty famous people or pretty powerful people, you're probably going to get citizenship, but you still need to prove that you can do it. You can't just walk up and be like, my daddy is rich, give me citizenship. You have to like prove to the group that you deserve it. It doesn't necessarily mean going to the military, but it often does. Most people who become citizens, you know, UEE are in fact military veterans. It's great for European time. Are there any worlds encased in ice but with oceans below? Yes. I mean, there's the obvious, which is Europa, which is also in the universe of Star Citizen. There's no novels based on Star Citizen lore. CIG has not authorized any novels done for them. There are writers who do write for CIG who are not part of the lore team, who do short stories, which are in the Jump Point magazine. But there is no long-running novels. The closest we have are 2 long-running short story, sort of maybe novellas. One is called, well, just a couple of them. There's Supermax, Orbital Supermax. There's Cassandra's Tears. And there's the Adventures of Kid Crimson, are the 3 that I can remember off the top of my head. There's also Lost Generation. Yeah, Lost Generation is another one. So they're short novella length stories. They're series of stories. They go up to like 8 or 9 parts. They probably aren't really novellas, but they're less than 100 pages. And a lot of those are written by the writers themselves. Some of them are written by contract writers who come in and write stuff for them. So, for Microtech is the first one, like, yes. I'm trying to remember. There's one that's actually a protected world, where, well, it is water world, but the poles are ice, so that's the only place you can build settlements. When is the next Imperator election? 2960. So at the end of this decade. It doesn't mean that there won't be elections for senators, because we don't know when senators are elected. All right, so, but I personally would love to see lore-based novels from Star Citizen, though I know that based on Star Citizen universe, because it's a very rich universe. But I also know that CIG probably doesn't have the money to fund novels. There is a novella which is being written for Star Citizen, where if you backed early enough, you could get access to that novella. So, but yeah, I definitely check into those stories. My favorite are Cassandra's Tears, And if you're a fan of the Tavaran, there's I think it's called The Final Surrender and Orbital Supermax are two. The Final Surrender is about the last Tavaran who held out against the UEE at the end of the Second Tavaran War. And that's where the Tavaran Jackal is first referenced. And it follows two different perspectives. It follows the Tavaran, one of who was a literal orphan who joined the Tavaran fleet because of being persecuted, living on kind of the fringes of human society. And the other one is following a captain and her crew of the last, trying to hunt down the last of these Tavaran. We speculate on a Prowler variant. We'll go over there here in a moment, but yeah. Hey, Daily Noob, welcome. We're talking about lore. This is the Astro Historian live stuff that I do. I do this here and on my YouTube, the Astro Historian. Any Crimson, what his name was? Kid Crimson. Kid Crimson is sort of like a swashbuckling pirate. So sort of like that sort of adventure story. And Cassandra's Tears is my favorite because it's the pulp novel about, what's his name? He is my internet husband. He is my in-fiction husband, as that old joke, that old chestnuts. Cal Mason. It's the story of Cal Mason. Now, it's important to note, if you read those novels or those novellas, they are very, very rough because they're before a lot of the lore was fully solidified. So like Cassandra's Tears references, they don't call the ships they're flying Hornets, but they're supposed to be Hornets. They call them anvils. The P-52, there's a point where they're where he's in a constellation, and the P-52 is literally in the cargo bay because that was where originally was supposed to be, was in the cargo bay. So he flies it out of the cargo bay, which I think it technically could fit, but you know. So some of them are very, very old, but you get the story is really neat. Like Cassandra's Tears is all about how Cal Mason goes rogue and tries to stop a Vandul. A Vandal invasion from using what's known as Cassandra's Tears, which is a secret UEE military device to destroy Earth. I love me some lore. Please never stop making your lore vids, dude. They're my pre-sleep audiobooks. Love them. Well, there'll be another one this weekend. We're talking about regen and the regen crisis. So like what regen is, why the regen crisis is happening, what's going on with that. So we can kind of give you a primer for what's going on with the events in 4.2. And for those of you who are wondering, I am going to be doing more videos pretty much. I'm going to try to be doing a video a week, but not everyone is going to get access to them. Basically, this Wednesday, so in 2 days, I'm going to have that regen video out for members on YouTube and Patreon supporters. And then on the weekend, it will be, this weekend, it'll be available for everybody. But then I'm also planning next Wednesday to have another video out, probably on the miscellaneous ships of the UEE Navy. That will be available for Patreon supporters and backers, but it won't come out to everybody else until June 21st. So I'm going to be staggering it so we have at least 2 videos a month. And then for Patreons, you'll get earlier access to it because I also want to stagger them out so that as we go into the fall, I'll have a bunch of other videos to do. There'll also be some other videos which will probably stay on as Patreon videos for a while, which I don't think would do very well on YouTube, which may come out eventually. Like I'm going to be doing one on the food, all of the food, of the lore of all the food and drink of the Star Citizen universe. I'm going to be doing one on the origin of rights in the UEE. So like who has rights, you know, who could be citizen, what are the what are the basic rights granted to all things that live in the UEE? Because, for instance, Tavaran can be citizens. Banu can be citizens. Even the Xi'an can be citizens. There are famously a Xi'an and multiple Banu, or multiple Tavaran, but we know at least one Xi'an citizen. So, has rights? Obviously not her employees, yeah. So let's get into the actual discussion here, because we're about an hour in, and I love the fact that everyone's being active and that kind of stuff. Refresh my memory of a vague recollection of a story of a bunch of colonists, civilians, suiciding by burning up in re-entry after failing to repel a Vandal. You're confusing something. So the Tavaran suicided into the atmosphere of their own planet after they lost the Second Tavaran War. The few Tavaran remnants of the Tavaran fleet that were destroyed by Squadron 42 during the Battle of Centauri, who managed to slip into the Elysian system, which is the system where the Tavaran homeworld is located. They took down their shields, and they intentionally plunged into the atmosphere to kill themselves because they felt that they failed their philosophy. Their religion is the best way of putting it, but Rejora. And it was famously encapsulated in the image, which you can find in game, called the Tears of Fire, which was painted by a former armory medic who was in Elysium running a clinic because he had gotten injured during the war and had to retire, and so he ended up retiring to Elysium to run a free clinic, and was watched as the ships burned in. So, who started the war? Us or the Tavaran? The Tavaran. As far as we know. Remember, history is written by the people who survive, and humanity won both wars. So, according to humanity, Tavaran started it. Do you need to be a citizen to be able to buy a ship in the Star Citizen universe? No. There is no restrictions on ship purchasing. However, it may be more difficult for you to fly that ship through a jump point than a citizen would be, especially if it's into a UEE sanction system. So like if you're going from Magnus to Stanton, you might get held up in customs more frequently. Whereas if you're a citizen, they just wave you through. What do we know about the Tavaran ship known as the Jackal? It's a two-seater ship where the second seat is a engineer and the pilot is mostly focusing on the guns and everything else. There is an internal compartment. You can get in and walk around inside of it. So it's not like a two-seater where you're stuck in your seat. So it's sort of like the Vanguard. But it's, I always describe it as the anti-Hurricane. Whereas the Hurricane was built almost based off of what we know, the Hurricane is almost assuredly based off of the Jackal, because it was built with a turret instead of the engineering compartment, the engineering bay, as a way to sort of counter the Jackal and Tavaran technologies in general. It was inspired by the Jackal. Does that mean that the Jackal will look anything like the Hurricane? No, Case has its own style, but in terms of its function is what it was designed for. So if there is a variant of the Prowler, and if it's a two-seater version, similar, because the Prowler does have two seats, I could easily see this being being the variant that could be coming out. We don't know if it is or not. It could very well be inspired by the Jackal or in the same vein as the Jackal. And it probably isn't going to be called the Jackal because it was named the Jackal. Oh, no, it's not the Last Surrender. It's called the Instrument of Surrender. And the Instrument Surrender is not written by CIG. It's written by a contract writer. So I don't know who has the rights to the name Tavaran Jackal. It may not be CIG. It may be the writer. So if it is, they'll probably call it something else. Obviously inspired by that, but you know. Yes, it's called Tears of Fire. Did I say Tears of Fire? Did I say something else? Yeah, Tears of Fire. Question: after listening to Info Runners last week, the Tavaran ship shown, the Jackal, was brought up. What do we know about it? Okay, yeah. That's about it. That's basically about it. All right. If it's a two-seater gunship, which is what I'm sure that ship is, the Paladin for the Prowler kind of thing, kind of like how the Paladin is the gunship version of the Valkyrie. I imagine the back area will be sort of removed, but it could also be a vehicle transport version of the Prowler. So we'll see. There's a lot of old lore around the Tavaran, which is probably going to be corrected as they continue forward with more information, more stuff about the Tavaran. All right. Now I'm actually going to get into the discussion. Thank you for everyone for talking, but let's get into looking at some of the shadow corporations, the shadow corporations of the UEE. So this is Shubin Interstellar. This is probably the most infamous one. So how does the "we have eyes on you" or whatever tagline was? Oh, I don't know what that tagline is, you know. Yes, dumbass, it's going good. hope your streams are doing so far, Paul. Yeah, dumbass, it's going great. Twitch, it's his name. It's literally his name. You could read it right there. His name is Dumbass. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The image in the thumbnail. I don't know why it says that. All right. The Hidden Empire. Dubbed the Hidden Empire by economic historian Dr. Edward Nogle, Shubin Interstellar has become one of the most expensive companies in UEE history, with profits to rival any solar systems and an employee base large enough to fill one. And while most people are familiar with the company by name because a large portion of their business happens to be the most remote parts of space, few are aware of how massive a corporate entity Shubin really is. Yet, it's from its very inception, Shubin was created with big plans in mind. Founded in 2410, Shubin Interstellar began life as an investment group headed by Seoul construction magnate Martha Shubin to take advantage of the nascent terraforming boom. As humanity's exploration to the stars continued and more worlds were discovered, Martha was calculating that a large bet on terraforming would pay off. The group began providing capital to various terraforming firms, but after a series of mergers and acquisitions, Shubin Interstellar found itself controlling interest in the third largest terraforming conglomerate in the UNE. The business continued to grow as humanity did, but the executives at Shubin found themselves with an overhead cost problem once the terraforming was done in any given system. The equipment and expertise they had built up in the system during the lengthy planetary engineering process was being sold off or liquidated once the work was done, at a considerable loss. These concerns were compounded with the rapid expansion of the 25th and 26th century, beginning to slow, meaning that there were fewer systems to terraform. The solution presented itself when Fulcrum Mining Associates offered a massive buyout of Shubin's assets in the Centauri system. Instead, Shubin made a counter-offer to purchase Fulcrum outright. The plan being that acquiring their mining expertise, Shubin would be able to seamlessly retrofit their terraforming holdings directly into mining ones. It ended up being a highly profitable decision, and Shubin's already impressive portfolio expanded rapidly. Soon, pure mining facilities were being constructed in systems without terraforming needs. By the 27th century, mining made up 60% of Shubin's Interstellar's net worth, which prompted the company to segment terraforming into a separate planetary engineering subsidy and heavily shift focus on ore acquisition. Shubin had successfully transitioned from a company that helped create worlds to one that focused primarily on ripping them apart. Fast forward today, and Shubin mining operations is close in every system, has mining operations in close to every system in the UEE and more beyond. Their influence on politics and government is unmatched, and public records show that the Shubin contributed more than any other company to lobbying efforts in the 2945 fiscal year. While with these days referring to a senator as having, quote, rocks in his pocket, unquote, is typically used to describe a politician who holds up proceedings. The phrase originally was used for anyone in the Senate who accepted large donations from Shubin. Yet despite their size, history, and political sway, their brand new shining headquarters on Microtech demonstrates clearly that their dedication to remaining the cutting edge of their commitment to continue to evolve and grow. Many attribute this company's continued success to their current CEO, Gavin Arlington. I'm not going to go into that too much, but you get the idea. They are very, very powerful and actively lobby the government to do what they want. And they get away with it. It's pronounced Dumas. Whatever you say, dumbass. Yeah, I know Alexander Dumas. So yeah, Shubin Interstellar, clearly Shadow Corporation. It's designed, its interest is very much in its own power and wealth, and it wants the government out of its way. So it'll pay the government to look the other way. Hey, Velocity, you've returned home to the land of America. I told you to leave. Why did you come back? Flee, fly, you fool. Hey, Kevin. Oh, yeah, I was going to think about it. Shubin. This is going to play a huge role in Squadron 42, because one of the major centerpieces of Squadron 42 is Archon Station, which is a giant mobile mining platform, which is currently located in the Coil in Odin. So, there, and we've already seen a little bit of the tension there, where if you watch this vertical slice, you walk in on the captain talking with the director of Archon Station, what is the actor's name? He's pretty famous. He was in Rogue One. He has this knack of playing sort of like imperial or corporate douchebags. Hey, Evil Tactics. But when you walk in, let me pull it up. I'll pull up the video itself so you can see what I'm talking about. No, it's rough. This was their vertical slice, which was very rough at the time. Ben Mendelsohn, yes. Thank you. So, the Idris.
I sincerely appreciate the offer, Captain, but you've done enough already. Shubin's more than capable of handling the situation. We've already dispatched the security forces, and I'm sure they'll find the Starfarer and...
You misunderstand me, Mr. Wexler. I wasn't seeking your approval on the matter. I was merely informing you of my intent out of courtesy. While your involvement is welcomed and strongly encouraged, it is entirely optional. Our involvement, however, is not. These OMC attacked a Navy ship in UEE space, and until the threat is neutralized, the Stanton will be remaining at Shubin, and we will be assisting in rescue operations.
You're not listening, Captain. Shubin Interstellar is a very important company in the UEE. It's a company with many, many connections. I'm sure that High Command's gonna be very disappointed to hear this overprotective thuggery.
Well, I look forward to hearing from them. Thank you for your time, Mr. Wexler. Well, you were right, Colton. That man is a complete ass.
Why protest so hard against our help?
Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of these distant stations see paying protection to various gangs as a standard cost of business. Wexler knows that with us here, we'll be forcing a fight. That means unknown risks. Which brings us back to the mission at hand. Care to join us, Lieutenant?
Cool, right? So you can already see that in there. Like, Shubin is hiding something, and they hide a lot of shit. there's a lot of weird things that are going on in Odin. But that gives you an idea that, like, that's a classic example of how the corporations work, shadow corporations work, including ASD, the most famous one for like Stormbreaker and stuff like that we're doing right now. There's a reason why ASD is doing its experiments in Pyro, where there are no laws, there are no regulations, and you can get away with a lot of stuff. Because from the looks of things, they are intentionally irradiating giant worms so that they can harvest them for resources, which are valuable. Yeah, this is, I said this is rough. This is their pre-alpha slice. This is very different. Like the character models are very different now than they used to be, but. Ben Mendelsohn he's not a supervillain in this. He's very much a upper management goof, not goof, goon. You know, it would be very bad if you did this because your supervisors would be very upset with you. It's like the black site, the corporate black site, like the Umbrella Corp under Raccoon City. Yeah, very much so. So, you know, famously RSI is a shadow corporation because effectively they run the Navy. RSI is the main Navy supplier, especially for larger ships. So if the government does something against RSI that they don't like, RSI has a large amount of pool that they can do some bad stuff. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if RSI was also an active participant in the downfall of the Mezzers, because famously, during Linton Mezzer's father's reign, there was an incident which is known as the death of Anthony Tanaka, which is immortalized in in Levski's entryway. Big statue, guy holding a kid. That kid is Anthony Tanaka. He was assassinated on the floor of a factory after pulling a 12-hour shift because his manager told him to work another 12-hour shift because his replacement went into anaphylactic shock. And Anthony, being like 10, was like, no, and had a complete meltdown on the floor because he's 10 and he's tired. And so as he was screaming and thrashing about, the one of the guards stepped forward and shot the kid dead on the floor. And this was recorded on security footage, which then leaked to the entire UEE of a kid having a mental breakdown and a soldier shooting him dead for having a mental breakdown. And it got even worse because the soldier who was shooting him wasn't a soldier, it wasn't even a security guard. It was part of the personal guard of the Imperator. Effectively the Praetorian Guard or the Secret Service, you know, the personal bodyguards of the leader of the government. They were on loan to the local governor to ensure that, you know, progress was working. This would be like if the Secret Service was caught assassinating kids because they refused to go to school. And while it didn't overthrow the government, it did piss off a lot of people at RSI who immediately began personal, like they issued a personal inspection of all of the facilities, of their own facilities and all of their partner facilities to ensure that conditions weren't as bad, and that they're not employing children to work in their factories. And that personally offended the Imperator, who then removed RSI from all government contracts. Which, you know, RSI runs the Navy. Like, this is a stupid idea. So I wouldn't be surprised if RSI was also actively involved in the anti-Mezzer movement after that. What was the reason for them being on loan? Because the governor of the planet was personal friends of the Imperator. Where is RSI HQ located? Earth, New York. Technically, it's on one of the Lagrange points of Earth. Basically, RSI owns, I think, all of the Lagrange points of Earth. One of them is a fucking massive station, like probably the size of a small moon. Not Death Star, don't you? But like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Gundam, you know, O'Neill cylinder style, like just huge station. And its sole job is to build capital ships. But they own most of them, so. Drakes and Magnus, Crusaders in Stanton. Kruger is in Castra. Both Origin and Anvil are in Terra. Aegis is out of Davian. Let me see, what else is there? Argo is all out of Mars. They're in Croshaw now, but they were originally located on Mars. I think they're still on Mars. So Argo is a Martian company. Hence the orange. Let's see. What are the other big famous ones? Misk is in Centauri. Can I get a resume from this live? You'll be able to watch this afterwards, so it'll be posted up there, Gabe. Loving the Hurston waistcoat and tie combo because it's gold. So does RSI make all of the captures for the UE or just the Polaris? Basically all of them now. The only ones they don't make are the old handovers from the Mezzer era, so the Idris and the Javelin. But they make I'm blanking on the name. Bengal. They make the Bengal, and they make the other two that seem to be derived from the Bengal, the battle cruiser and the escort carrier. There's also another escort carrier famously called the Pegasus carrier, which is may or may not still exist in the universe of Star Citizen. But less we heard, it still exists as a ship. But it seems like after the Mezzer era, effectively, Aegis got removed from most of its contracts. And in sort of probably response to Aegis being the main contractor and the dangers of having that, all of the large ships are built by RSI, and all of the smaller ships are built by Anvil for the UEE. But Origin also still builds several ships. And they're also an engine manufacturer. So like most of the Bengal carriers and a lot of the like the Javelin and like I think the engines on the Polaris and the Idris are all made by Origin. The big one, the Retribution Super Dreadnought. The Super Dreadnought is, as far as I understand, made by all of them. So RSI, Aegis, Anvil, Argo, Misk, probably not Drake, but pretty much any company that has some sort of government contract, Kruger, they all probably have a part in that project. It was too big for one company. Yeah, it's yeah. Is the Javelin will be replaced by one ship made by RSI eventually. Same with the Idris. The Idris has been up for replacement for fucking ever. They've been wanting to replace the Idris since the Second Tavaran War, but just never bothered to. I mean, its lore mirrors the actual U.S. Navy's Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, which are ancient by most standards, but we're still building them because they work. Basically, all cap ships have had a lot of parts made by third parties. Most of them do, yes. Kruger is a huge parts manufacturer. They make most of the parts for the UEE, so. It has Drake's escape pods. Question, what are the battleship variants called of the Bengals? They're cruisers. We don't know what they're called, but I call them the Integrity class because there's a famous battle cruiser or famous cruiser, which in the lore was used for a propaganda film called the UES Integrity. And in the Battle of Vega, the Integrity is present on that hollow globe, and it is one of those cruisers. And because the Integrity is known as a cruiser, those battleship-looking ones are actually cruisers. When you said to the consoles, instead of mentioning the company, the combat says, "I hunger for souls. Kill them all to slake my thirst." The scientists have not confirmed why. We know why. I mean, I'm gonna go into my own theory crafting here. I've already done a video on this if you haven't already. I believe that the UEE Navy built the Retribution with a weapon to surpass Metal Gear. All right, a weapon that is probably blew up a planet, a small moon, and then cut a actual planet in half because of a lot of evidence which is filtering out through a lot of different lore pieces. Yeah, dreadnoughts and super dreadnoughts are the battleships. Yeah, they've actually completely removed battleships. There are no battleships that we know of officially in service with the UEE anymore. There used to be, but they retired them because the Vanduul used to basically rep them a new one. They were too slow to maneuver effectively. So the Vanduul, even the largest of the Vanduul ships, maybe not the King ship, but their cruisers could easily outflank and destroy the battleships. This is the Eclipse class Star Destroyer, Star Citizen. Hey, Sin. No, basically the Retribution is the product of alien technology because we never learn. My theory is that the Hadesians, a long extinct species which used to reside in the Hades system that we discovered when we discovered the Hades system, had blown themselves up 60,000 years ago. One of the things we discovered was that one of the planets is literally a half planet. It's a planet that has been cut down the middle into two different planets, basically. It's been turned into two different half worlds. As well as all of their planets being nuked to death, antimatter explosions, nuclear radiation everywhere, the works. It's just gone. And human weapons companies had been sending archaeologists and explorers into the Hadesian system, into the Hades system to find the origin of whatever caused that planet to crack in two. And I believe they found it. At least the UEE found it. And then used that weapon, that technology, and installed it on the Retribution. Because if it can destroy a planet, probably kill a king ship. The Retribution, powered by a superheated, the spicy toilet seat of the Hades system. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of the Retribution. Super Dreadnought. So this is a fan rendering of the Retribution. It's compared to the Bengal, which is right next to it. This is the Retribution. This is the Bengal. What is this? Why does it have these little ribs here? The language of both the trope of sci-fi and the language of sci-fi, visual language of sci-fi, says that this is something like a canon of some kind. The cannon is bigger than the fucking Bengal. Not gonna lie, the Retribution looks way too alien. I know. That's my point. I believe this is the Hadesian superweapon, and that this ship is partially built off of Vanduul technology. It is a human Vanduul Hadesian hybrid vessel. Now, that was an early rendering. That was an old from a leak, you know, very, very old. Question, is Squadron 42 episode 1 supposed to end at the Battle of Oberon? We don't know when it ends. I know when it ends, but I'm not going to tell you. All I can say is that it takes place during 2945 and into 2946. What are your opinions on Bomber, referring to torpedo-based anti-ship type ships and true ground attack bombers? What do you mean my opinion on it? That rendering like it would require an entire server to crew it? Yeah, it's because you're never going to crew a Retribution. Retribution is not something you can make in Star Citizen. It is a Squadron 42 asset. The UEE found it remains in the Hades system and are rebuilding it. Kinda. The Retribution, we don't know. We do know that the Retribution was launched in 2945 or 2946, so it was completed around the time I think it was after the Battle of Vega, but it was being built before then. Yeah, we talked a little bit about Hurston. We talked a little bit about how it is a shadow corporation, mostly because it makes all the weapons for the UEE. So like they can get away with a lot of shit. Oh, that's another thing. I'm going to be doing an entire video on the Hurstons, the Hurston family, the history of the Hurstons. It's going to be delicious. The Hurstons are some of the most fascinating characters in all of Star Citizen lore, because they're equal parts gigantic dicks and like sort of realistic, reasonable people. Like Magda Hurston, who is the one who actually bought the planet Hurston. She was a genius, very smart, very good. Like not just the business smart, but like she was a scientist. Like she was an engineer and a scientist. She went to UPark. She was also a very good businesswoman. And she was also ruthless as shit. Drake is owned by a different family. They're owned by a couple of different investors who actually founded it in the first place. But they're all engineers too. The Cydnus, you're talking about, Dev? The Cydnus mining spider? Fun fact, it's actually partially follow-up question, because I recall there's supposed to be a Squadron 42 behind enemy lines that isn't there, or am I tripping? You're not tripping. That was the original title of the DLC. But when they had to break up Squadron 42 into 3 parts, those people who got the DLC for the DLC behind enemy lines as part of their backer benefits got part 2 of the 3 parts in as well. So it's basically 3 games. Part 1, 2, and 3. What we're getting in 2026 is part 1. I think your videos about the Vanduul, at some point you said that the Retribution began to be built in the penultimate or anti-ultimate ruler of the Azra era. I think probably around there, yeah. It's definitely been built either late in the Mesra era or early in the new UEE era, because it took a long time for it to build. It could have been built over the last 50 years, but we're talking about a vessel that was built for decades, took decades to build. Oh, it seems confusing having 2 completely different ships with the same classification. Star Citizen's classifications don't make any sense, because they're not designed to make any sense. So like a bomber is a torpedo bomber versus a regular bomber. So like a Retaliator is a torpedo bomber. A Gladiator is a torpedo bomber. A Eclipse is a torpedo bomber. But that's kind of the best way of putting it. We just most of the fans just kind of refer to it as bomber. Do you still think they will release 2026 with the news that GTA 6 is coming out in 2026? I don't think they can delay it anymore. I think it'll come out in 2026. I think it'll come out at the like very, very end of 2026, but I think it's coming out in 2026. It seems confusing having 2 completely different ship roles with the same classification. That's classification in Star Citizen. I don't think it'll come out on December 31st. I have a theory that Squadron 42 will come out December 8th or December 15th, 2026. Because they go for a break. The company goes on break on the 18th for 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. So they won't come back to work until at the earliest the 4th of January, 2027. The truth is that CIG had no idea what the classification of the ships. That is true. Why those days? Because those are Tuesdays. Typically, most games release on a Tuesday, and Chris is a very traditional guy when it comes to those sort of things. And the 15th is the week before their break, and I think sometimes they may shoot for a week before the week before the break, so they could do some quick patching if they need to. It can also release December 1st, which is a Tuesday as well. Nope. I think they still want to do some more build up for it, so they'll make an announcement of when they release it. They're going to release it, but I don't think it may slip because that's how games work. But I don't think CIG is going to slip much. I think if anything, it'll slip backwards. It's crazy that CIG hasn't purchased the domain StarCitizen.com, considering it's only for sale for $250,000. It's $250,000. CIG is not going to purchase that domain until Star Citizen 1.0 is coming out. To be fair, somebody sniped it from them because they were stupid and they didn't buy it themselves. Somebody sniped it from them and is doing domain squatting on them. They're not going to release it in the first quarter. It's not ready for the first quarter. I'm not going to get too into the weeds about development stuff. If you want to watch me talk about Star Citizen's development rather than lore, I also talk about lore a little bit, but mostly talk about development in the game itself. Check out the AstroPub, twitch.tv/theastropub, youtube.com/theastropub live. When I'm doing these AstroHistorian lives, it's mostly about lore. Just talk a little bit about lore and that kind of stuff. So, had hydractive Polaris earlier and had the torps all piled in a cargo ready to move from my ship, and the owner flew into the Narrow and shot me and hit the torp stack. Glorious explosion. Well, ICE, they don't have $800 million on. They don't have that carrying around in a basket. They have made $800 million and spent most of it. There are laws that allow companies to circumvent domain squatting. I think CIG just doesn't care about it yet until they do, which will probably be 1.0. Am I going to do ship lore on the Ironclad? If there's enough lore for it. Unfortunately, most ships don't have a lot of lore initially. If we get a lore for a ship, it'll come out in a jump point. Squadron 42 at the end of IAE 2026. I have a feeling that we're going to see at least an announcement of Squadron 42's release date this year. Because if it's coming out in 2026, they're going to have a solid date that they'll release. They may slip back from it, but I don't think it's going to be released away from 2026. It's in 3 baskets in Chris's office. Oh, I didn't see that. Skypiss, thank you so much for that. 28 minutes ago, 2 months of support. The worms. Thank you for that. When do you think the BMM will come out? Right before 1.0 comes out? The CIG, we talked about this on the Captain's Table podcast, my podcast I do on Saturdays. Check it out, at the Captain's Table podcast on YouTube. It's also on podcast formats. We talk about how up till now CIG's been doing a lot of stepping stone ships, so it's likely that if they're going to do the BMM again, we're going to see a stepping stone ship before the BMM. So like them learning how to make the BMM before they actually make the BMM. So something there's been a lore ship that's floated around called the Banu Trip Taker, but it's never been fully confirmed in lore. It's more of a sort of a maybe thing. which is probably somewhere between a defender and a merchantman. So they'll probably see that first, and then you'll see the merchantman. Similar to how we got the Ironclad is the stepping stone ship to the Kraken, the Arastra is the stepping stone ship to the Orion, I think. What was that? Is that the name? The big RSI mining ship, that kind of thing. Bishop is not Julius Caesar. He's Marcus Aurelius. Because Chris Roberts is a big fan of Marcus Aurelius. This is the Orion. Yeah, this is Orion. Yeah. These Shadow Corps are running like wars on each other. For example, we know Crusader Corp is having a crisis with gangs, and their competitors are encouraging such. We don't know that. There's no confirmation of that, but it's likely. We know that like Misk and Drake actively fuck with each other. So I wouldn't be surprised if they took it beyond just PR stunts and actually started doing some espionage. There's no evidence of corporate espionage that we know of. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen, and it probably will happen in game, but we'll have to see. I have a feeling that that's going to be a whole gameplay loop inside the game where you have to like, I mean, Bit Zero exists, and Bit Zero's is sort of like that, but there's kind of like, Bit Zero's is Star Citizen's Anon, you know, the Anonymous Network. They're a hacker group, a hacker collective that tries to mess with people, but didn't know that. Now I'm a much bigger fan of Misk. To be fair, it was Drake who started the conflict in the first place, and then Misk decided to, you know, get revenge. I really love a lot of the lore around the Redder system. Do you think we'll ever be released in Star Citizen? Yeah, I think all the ship systems will eventually be released. It's just a matter of when. All Xi'an ships use a lot of anti-grav tech. Wait, Paul, Bishop isn't Flavius Attilus? He defeated Attila at the Battle of Canisian Fields? No, he is Marcus Aurelius, who defeats the Germans, because the Vandul are the Vandals, the Germans. Whoever Bishop's replacement is going to be the one who's that. I hope we have lore on the next wipe that everyone's respawn image got wiped to fix the issue, and everyone's going to have to start over. They probably won't, but that'd be cool. Do you think Star Citizen 1.0 will come out before Squadron 43 or Squadron 44? Yes. Yes. I don't think the Squadron 42 Part 2 is going to come out until after 1.0 is released. I thought they were supposed more Hunnic. They have the culture of similar to the Huns, but they're analogous to the Germans. Because the constant question is, what's pushing the Vandul out? And who was pushing the Vandul out? The Huns. The Vandals out? The Huns. Classic Britons. Yeah, that's going to be my main discussion point for this video that's coming out on Wednesday for members and Patreons, and the weekend for everybody else, which is that is on respawn, regen, and why regen, what the regen crisis is likely, the history of it, what we know so far. We talked a little bit about the shadow corporations, but I like the fact that there's a lot of y'all who are coming in and just asking questions. It's always nice, especially when I do this a little earlier in the day. More people are able to participate. So, do you think we could end up having a Vandal mission giver for criminal elements of us, considering they have different clans operating in different parts of the UEE? Possibly, but I think that'd be much later down the line for Star Citizen. The CIG does want to have some groups that are just evil, that are always sort of an antagonist to the player, and the Vandal are an easy antagonist. Every time I play Star Citizen, I want to watch Wing Commander again. So you're saying that we should buy real estate on Terra if we should buy if they ever find the Visigoth species? Yes. Yeah, the current list of videos is Regen Crisis, the miscellaneous ships of the UE Navy, the history of the Hurstons, a primer for Star Citizen, so like what is the story of Star Citizen 1.0, the food and drink of Star Citizen, the political like rights and responsibilities in Star Citizen, like what are human rights in the Star Citizen universe. I'm blanking on the rest because I have them all written down somewhere, but oh, I'm going to do one on the economy of the UEE, like how the economy functions. Are there any alien species that are considered by humans to be physically attractive? Do you mean do we have like fuckable aliens? No, wouldn't be by like average person. No, though there are people who are in relationships with other aliens. Like there's people who are in relationship with Tavarin, for instance. Like the Asari from Mass Effect. No. Though, you know, I know enough women who would absolutely did and are unabashed of doing Garrus, you know, a Turian. So, you know, there are a lot of different people in this crazy world who find lots of different things attractive. Hold on, it's my wife. Yes. It might have been my cats. They like to bang on the door too. Yeah, CIG's sort of whole shtick and their whole like artistic style is not attractive. You're gonna get a lot of bugs. You're gonna get a lot of fish. You're gonna get some like bird people. The Tavarin are probably gonna be the closest to attractive, because they'll be somewhat vaguely furry, in the sense of like modern, you know, that sort of subculture. No, That's the closest thing you're going to get is Tabaran, because they're birds. Or bird-like. So many want to be James Kirk. It's not the universe for James Kirks. Not in that way, at least. Yeah, Star Citizen's universe is heavily inspired by Blade Runner, Alien, Terminator, that kind of like that sort of classic 80s science fiction. So, generally speaking, 80s sci-fi wasn't filled with very physically attractive aliens. They were usually some form of bleh. Ooh. All right, y'all. We'll wrap this up here shortly. Thank you for hanging out with us. I try to keep these streams a little shorter because I know people don't have a lot of time to watch, and I don't want to like do 4 hours. If you do want to watch me talk about stuff for 4 hours, or play the game, or play other games, you can follow me at twitch.tv/theastropub and youtube.com/theastropub live. If you want to watch a good long, usually it's like 2 segments, which are about an hour and a half each to 2 hours. So like 3 to 4 hour long talk about Star Citizen, check out the Captain's Table podcast. But if you'd like to see lore of Star Citizen and other universes, please hit that subscribe button on Twitch, on YouTube. You can also subscribe on Twitch. Like the video, hit the bell icon to be notified of its release. Thank you again for watching, and like I always say, ex historia ad astra.